My brother sent me a text. Don't go home tonight. The words stopped me dead in my tracks. I was on my way back from a business trip, and all I could think about was seeing my family. What he showed me next wasn't just a betrayal. It was a declaration of war from my own wife and kids. Quick sidebar. If you think revenge is a dish best served cold, smash that subscribe button. You need to see how this plays out. Now back to the story. I built my empire on two unbreakable rules. Loyalty earns loyalty. Betrayal earns total destruction. I thought I understood betrayal, that it was for cutthroat business deals, not for your own home. But what my family did shattered my world and forced me to become a man I never knew existed. I'm Christopher Graham. At 42 years old, my company, Graham Industries, had built half of Chicago's skyscrapers. My name meant something. My presence silenced rooms. I was flying home from Dallas, 30,000 feet above the world, after locking up a $200 million deal. Everything felt perfect. My wife, Ashley, had texted earlier, "Miss you already. Kids can't wait for you to get home." I actually smiled. Ashley, my wife of 15 years, was my anchor. We had two amazing kids, Brandon, 16, and Rachel, 14. My brother, Martin, always joked that I was two different men, the ruthless businessman and the devoted family man who coached Little League. He was right. My family was sacred, untouchable. As the plane landed at O'Hare, my phone buzzed. It was Martin. "Welcome back, brother," he said, but his voice was tight, strained. "Everything good here?" I asked, walking towards the parking garage. A pause. A thick, unsettling silence. "We need to talk," he finally said. "In person." Martin ran security for my entire empire. He was solid, unshakable. He never sounded uncertain. "What's wrong?" I demanded. Another pause, this one longer, colder. Then he said it. "Christopher, don't go home tonight. Just trust me. Stay away. Come to my place instead." And then he hung up. My mind raced. For 40 years, Martin had never steered me wrong. His instincts had saved me more than once. But my family was waiting. Ashley would be devastated if I didn't come home after 3 weeks. Still, that raw, desperate tone in his voice triggered my survival instincts. I listened. 40 minutes later, I was on his doorstep. When he opened the door, his face was grim, disheveled. "Before you say anything," Martin choked out, "you need to see this." On his coffee table was a laptop, surrounded by surveillance gear. He turned it towards me. The screen showed a frozen video frame of my own home office. "I installed these cameras 3 months ago," Martin said quietly. "I noticed someone was leaking information. I thought it was corporate espionage." My jaw tightened. "What did you find?" He clicked play. It was Ashley. She walked into my office, followed by a man I didn't recognize. Tall, blonde, impeccably dressed. She was laughing, her hand on his arm, a gesture far too intimate. "That's Andre Travis," Martin whispered. "Real estate developer from Seattle." I watched, frozen, as they embraced. Passionately. Right there, in my office. Andre sat in my chair. My chair. Ashley perched on the edge of my desk, her legs draped over his lap. Martin fast-forwarded. The next clip, my blood turned to ice. Brandon and Rachel were there. My children. Sitting across from Ashley and Andre, like it was some twisted business meeting. "Your kids, Christopher," Martin whispered, his voice thick with disgust. "They're helping them. Brandon's been copying your private files. Rachel's been reporting your phone calls." The world tilted. I sank into Martin's chair. On the screen, my son handed a stack of papers to Andre. My wife smiled at him, that familiar, approving smile she used to give me. My daughter pointed at something on her phone, explaining it to this stranger. "There's more," Martin said. "Audio recordings. Financial transfers. They're not just stealing information. They're actively sabotaging you." My vision blurred with a rage so pure it was a physical agony. The 3 people I trusted most in the world had declared war on me. When I finally spoke, my voice was calm, deadly quiet. "How long?" "About 8 months," Martin replied. I stood, walking to his window, staring out at the Chicago skyline I had built. The wound went deeper than I ever thought possible. I turned back to Martin. "You said there were audio recordings. Christopher, this is going to hurt." "I'm already hurt, Martin. Show me everything." He clicked on a file. Ashley's voice filled the room. "Christopher thinks he's so untouchable," she said. "But he has no idea his own children see him as a tyrant." Then Andre's voice. "Brandon hates him. Rachel resents him. I've convinced them that helping us will give them the independence they crave." Ashley's laughter echoed through the speakers. The beautiful thing is, Christopher will never suspect his precious family. When we destroy him, it won't just be his business that falls. It'll be his soul. Martin stopped the recording. The silence stretched. When I finally spoke, my voice had changed. Gone was any trace of a loving husband. What remained was the voice that had crushed business rivals. They had declared war on Christopher Graham. Martin, I said, I need your help to teach them that betrayal has consequences. All of them. My brother nodded slowly. What do you want me to do? I walked back to the window, my reflection a ghost haunting my own empire. I want you to help me show them what happens when you declare war on me. I didn't sleep. I sat in Martin's study, surrounded by the cold, hard evidence, and methodically planned their destruction. By dawn, I had filled 3 legal pads. You look like hell, Martin said, bringing me coffee. I feel reborn, I replied, my voice eerily calm. My plan had 4 phases. Phase 1, intelligence. I needed to know everything about Andre Travis, his weaknesses, his fears, his pressure points. Phase 2, control. I'd let them think they were winning while I positioned all the pieces. Ashley and the kids had to believe I was completely oblivious. Phase 3, the revelation. When I was ready, they would understand exactly what they'd done, and exactly what it would cost them. Martin studied my diagrams on the whiteboard. And Phase 4? My smile was purely predatory. Phase 4 is where they learn some lines should never be crossed. Over the next 3 days, I played the part of the loving husband and father. I came home Sunday with gifts. A designer handbag for Ashley, a new gaming system for Brandon, art supplies for Rachel. Daddy! Rachel threw her arms around me. Her performance was just as convincing as mine. We missed you so much. I missed you too, sweetheart, I replied, hugging her tightly while my mind catalogued every detail of her manufactured affection. That night, I lay beside Ashley, listening to her steady breathing as my mind worked through contingencies. She murmured in her sleep, I love you, Christopher. I love you too, I whispered back. The lie tasted like poison. Monday morning, Martin's surveillance was live. Every phone call, every text, every email. The background check on Andre came back with more than I could have hoped for. He wasn't just some developer. He had deep family connections to Seattle's political machine. An uncle who was a federal judge. He'd done this before, targeted successful businessmen by seducing their wives and turning their families against them. Ashley and my children weren't just betraying me. They were pawns in his game. That didn't soften my anger. It crystallized it. They had chosen to become his weapons. That evening, I called a state of the family meeting. I know I've been traveling a lot, I began. I want to make sure we're all connected. I asked them about their futures, about college, about their dreams. I just want you both to know, I said, my voice warm and paternal. Whatever you decide, I'm here to support you. Family comes first. Always. Ashley squeezed my hand. That's why we love you so much. I squeezed back, noting the slight tremor in her fingers. Later, I watched the surveillance footage. The meeting had rattled them. Within an hour, Ashley had called Andre. He's acting strange, Andre, she whispered. Too friendly. What if he knows something? Andre's voice was calm, reassuring. He doesn't know anything. Men like Christopher are so arrogant they can't imagine their own families betraying them. I paused the recording and smiled. He mistook my silence for ignorance, not strategy. The next morning brought phase 2. I instructed my assistant to schedule a dinner party for Saturday. I want you to invite Andre Travis, I said. Ashley mentioned meeting him. I think it's time we met formally. Martin thought I was insane. Why would you bring him into your house? Because, I said, I want to watch him squirm. I was right. Andre couldn't resist. He accepted the invitation. Saturday evening arrived. I looked into the eyes of the man who had orchestrated my family's betrayal. He extended his hand with a perfect smile. Mr. Graham, I've been looking forward to meeting you. I shook his hand, applying just enough pressure to be memorable. Please call me Christopher. Any friend of Ashley's is welcome in our home. I watched his eyes. He'd expected suspicion, not warmth. During cocktails, I observed them. Ashley kept a perfect distance, but I saw the slight touches, the way she angled her body toward him. Brandon and Rachel peppered Andre with questions about his business. To our other guests, it looked like teenage curiosity. To me, it looked like a debriefing. During dessert, I dropped a bomb. I'll be traveling quite a bit over the next month, I said casually. Dallas, Phoenix, possibly a trip to Seattle. Andre's fork paused halfway to his mouth. A tiny hesitation that only I caught. Seattle has an excellent market, he said carefully. I'd be happy to give you some recommendations. That's very generous, I replied. Maybe we could meet for coffee. After the other guests left, Andre and I had a final drink in my study. The same room where he'd been secretly meeting with my family. Your family seems very close, Andre said. They're everything to me, I replied. Family is sacred. Loyalty is the foundation of everything. I could forgive almost any mistake, but betrayal. I let the word hang in the air. Betrayal destroys trust, Andre agreed. I disagree, I said quietly. I think it's pointless to rebuild. Some things, once broken, should stay broken. After he left, Ashley found me. That went well, don't you think? She said, her smile radiant. He's interesting, I agreed. Almost like he's been studying the local market for months. I wrapped my arms around her. I love you, I said. She leaned back against me. I love you too. I kissed the top of her head while my mind calculated the final steps. Phase 2 was complete. But this was only half the problem. What happened next made everything else look easy. I implemented Phase 3 with the precision of a master chess player. I called another family meeting. I've decided to take a step back from the company, I announced. I'm even thinking of bringing in a partner. I watched their faces. They were fighting to keep their expressions neutral, but I could see the excitement building. Do you have anyone in mind? Ashley asked. Actually, I do. That Andre Travis fellow. He seemed sharp. I was thinking of offering him a consulting position. The silence was electric. They thought they had won. He did seem very knowledgeable, Ashley said carefully. But darling, shouldn't you be more cautious? I smiled at the irony. You're probably right. But I have a good feeling about Andre. There's something trustworthy about him. 2 weeks later, I signed Andre to a consulting contract. It gave him access to everything. Company files, strategic plans, client information. Behind the scenes, my network documented every theft, every betrayal. What they didn't realize was that I was feeding them carefully crafted misinformation. False documents, misleading financial projections, and plans designed to lead Andre into catastrophic business decisions. They thought they were outsmarting me. They had no idea they were walking into a trap of my own design. The first crack came in December. Andre's attempts to steal my clients began backfiring spectacularly. He was using my false information to make presentations filled with wildly inaccurate numbers. Something's wrong, he told Ashley in a recorded call. The Henderson Project numbers don't match. That's impossible, Ashley replied. Brandon copied them directly from Christopher's files. Maybe his judgment is slipping. Even faced with flawed intelligence, they couldn't imagine I was misleading them. Their arrogance would be their downfall. The second crack came when Andre's businesses in Seattle started to crumble. Convinced by my false projections, he'd diverted resources from his West Coast properties. The result was a cash flow crisis that forced him to take on dangerous levels of debt. He's starting to panic, Martin reported. At this rate, his Seattle operation collapses in 6 weeks. I nodded. Then it's time for Phase 4. I'm going to invite them to a family Christmas party. All of them. And then I'm going to show them the real meaning of Christmas. Christmas Eve arrived. The house looked spectacular, a perfect setting for the destruction it represented. Andre arrived at 8 p.m. sharp, an expensive bottle of wine in hand, and a practiced smile on his face. He greeted my family with the warm familiarity of someone who believed he already belonged. During dinner, he spoke confidently about his future plans in Chicago. After dinner, we moved to the living room. Rachel curled up in her favorite chair. "This is perfect," she said. "Having Mr. Travis here makes it feel like we have a complete family." The words hung in the air. My own daughter, casually wishing to replace me with my enemy. "Speaking of family," I said, setting down my coffee cup, "I have an announcement." I reached into my jacket, pulled out a small recording device, and placed it on the coffee table. I wanted to share some family memories. Andre's face went pale. I pressed play. Ashley's voice filled the room. "Christopher thinks he's so untouchable. He has no idea his own children see him as a tyrant." Ashley's face went white. Brandon and Rachel looked confused. Andre's voice followed. "Brandon hates him. Rachel resents him. I've convinced them that helping us will give them the independence they crave." I watched my children's faces as horror dawned. Then, Ashley's laughter echoed through the speakers. "When we destroy him, it won't just be his business that falls. It'll be his soul." I stopped the recording. Ashley was frozen. Andre was reaching for his coat. "If you try to leave, Andre," I said, my voice quiet but deadly, I'll have you arrested before you reach the door. I have surveillance footage of you stealing confidential documents, recordings of you conspiring to commit corporate espionage, and evidence of you manipulating my minor children into criminal activity." He sank back into his chair. I turned to Ashley. "You're going to pack your things and leave this house tonight. You will receive divorce papers in the morning. You will get no alimony, no property, and no access to our children." She found her voice. "Christopher, you can't. The prenup. The prenup has an adultery clause that voids every protection you thought you had. You'll be lucky if I don't have you prosecuted." I turned to Andre. "As for you, you have 24 hours to leave Illinois. If you're still here after that, I will destroy you so completely you'll wish I had simply called the police." "You can't prove," he started. I smiled, a predatory expression that made his words die in his throat. "Your family connections won't help you when your Seattle properties are foreclosed on next week. I'd quietly purchased your debt from 3 different banks. With one phone call, I can trigger foreclosure on every property you own. I own you, Andre. Completely." His face crumpled in defeat. Finally, I turned to my children. Brandon was on his knees, crying. "Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't understand." Rachel was sobbing. "Daddy, please. I love you." I felt something break inside my chest. "You chose," I said quietly. "Both of you. When they asked you to spy on me, to steal from me, to help them destroy me, you chose to do it. They were to be exiled to live with their grandmother in Phoenix. They would have trust funds for college, but no further contact with me. You can't abandon your own children." Rachel sobbed. My voice was granite. "You abandoned me first." The room was silent except for the crackling of the fire. I felt no satisfaction, only the cold emptiness of a man who had lost everything worth protecting. I looked at the destruction of my family. My wife, an adulteress. My business partner, a fraud. My children, broken teenagers who learned too late that betrayal has a price. Ashley looked at me, her voice breaking. 15 years of marriage, 2 children. Doesn't any of that mean anything to you? I walked to the window and looked out at the Chicago skyline. My city. My empire. It meant everything to me, I said without turning. That's why I can never forgive you for destroying it. The aftermath of Christmas Eve unfolded with methodical precision. By New Year's Day, Ashley was living in a downtown apartment, buried under the terms of the most punitive divorce settlement in Cook County history. Andre Travis had fled back to Seattle, desperately trying to stop his business empire from collapsing. And Brandon and Rachel were packing for their exile to Phoenix, their grandmother flying in to collect them like pieces of wreckage from a shipwreck. The house felt cavernous. I stood in my office, surrounded by the evidence of their betrayal, and felt nothing. I didn't miss Ashley. The woman I loved was a fiction. What I missed was the illusion of having a partner. The children were harder. Intellectually, I understood they were manipulated. Emotionally, I couldn't separate their age from their choices. They knew it was wrong, and they did it anyway. My assistant, Francisco, appeared in the doorway. "Sir, I have the final reports from the attorneys." I scanned the papers. Divorce finalized. Custody terminated. Property divided. Ashley had signed everything. "There's one more thing," she said hesitantly. "The former Mrs. Graham has been calling. She says she has information about Mr. Travis's plans for revenge." I almost smiled. Still trying to manipulate me. "Tell her I'm not interested." "And the children, sir?" "They've been calling." Brandon left several distressed voicemails. I walked to my window, looking at the snow-covered gardens where I'd taught my kids to build snowmen. "Delete the messages," I said quietly. That afternoon, I met with Martin. "You look like hell," he said. "I feel efficient," I replied. "Christopher, you won. Maybe it's time to think about rebuilding." "Rebuilding what?" I sank into the leather chair where I'd first learned the truth. "My marriage? My relationship with children who chose my enemy over me." "Maybe not those relationships," he said, "but you could build new ones." "I had the life I wanted," I said quietly. "It was an illusion, but it was what I wanted. Now I have clarity instead of happiness. It's a fair trade." Then Martin dropped the next bomb. "Our contacts in Seattle have been monitoring Andre. He's not accepting defeat. He's been making calls to some very dangerous people. The kind who solve problems with violence." I felt a familiar coldness settle in my chest. "He's telling people you destroyed him illegally," Martin continued. "He's suggesting that eliminating you would solve a lot of problems for his powerful family." I smiled, and Martin recognized the expression that had terrified my competitors for 2 decades. "Good," I said. I was wondering when he'd escalate to something interesting. This isn't a business negotiation, Christopher. Neither do I play by the rules, I shot back. This isn't business anymore, Martin. This is personal. What do you want me to do? I turned back to my brother, my expression calm and deadly. I want you to send Andre a message. Make it clear that if he continues down this path, I won't just destroy his business. I'll destroy everything he's ever cared about. 3 days later, Andre Travis received a package at his Seattle hotel. Inside was a single photograph of his elderly mother leaving a grocery store, completely unaware she was being watched. On the back, in neat block letters, "Some games have no winners." He called within an hour, screaming, "You son of a bitch. If you touch my mother—" "I won't need to," I replied calmly. "Because you're going to stop making phone calls to dangerous people. You're going to accept that you lost this war, and you're going to disappear. You declared war on my family, and I destroyed you. If you escalate this to violence, I will escalate my response accordingly. The choice is yours." I hung up. Martin looked at me. "Are you really willing to follow through?" I stared out at the city I had conquered. Martin, 6 months ago, I thought I was a family man. Then I discovered my family was my enemy. Do you really think I have any lines left that I won't cross? That night, I stood alone in my empty house, surrounded by ghosts. Tomorrow, I would continue to build my empire, but I would do it alone, without the burden of trust or the weakness of love. Spring arrived, but I felt no renewal. My life settled into a routine of absolute efficiency. Graham Industries was more profitable than ever. I was completely alone. My assistant Francisco handled everything. One day, she brought me a handwritten letter. It was from Brandon from Phoenix. "Dear Dad," it began. "I know you said no contact, but I had to try. I've been seeing a counselor. I know now that we were manipulated, but I also know that doesn't excuse our choices. I'm not asking for another chance. I just wanted you to know that I understand why. I hope you're happy." I read it 3 times, then placed it in a desk drawer with other unanswered letters from him and Rachel. My phone buzzed. It was Martin. "Need to meet. Andre's situation has evolved." I drove to his office. "Andre Travis is dead," Martin said flatly. "Car accident. Lost control in a rainstorm, went off an overpass. They found empty whiskey bottles in the car. It was a suicide. His business had collapsed completely. Bankruptcy, foreclosure, criminal investigations for fraud. His family had cut him off. He had nothing left." "How do you feel about it?" Martin asked. I considered it. "I feel nothing," I said honestly. "His death changes nothing for me. Are you happy?" Martin pressed. "Happiness is for people who have things to lose," I replied. "I'm efficient, successful, invulnerable. Those are better than happy." "Are they?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Happiness requires trust, and trust creates vulnerability." My new worldview was tested constantly. Social invitations, charity events. I attended alone. "You can't stay alone forever," a colleague, Rich Johnston, told me at lunch. "Half the women in Chicago would marry you tomorrow." "For my money or my status," I replied. "Neither seems like a good foundation for trust." "Come on, not every woman is like Ashley." "How would I tell the difference?" I asked. "She convinced me for 15 years. If I couldn't detect that level of deception in my own wife, how could I trust my judgment with a stranger?" Rich had no answer. Then, Martin called with another emergency. "Ashley has been arrested." "For what?" "Fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. The FBI raided her apartment. They're saying she was running a scheme to steal and sell business intelligence from multiple companies, not just yours. They think the scheme goes back years, possibly to before she even met you." I processed the revelation. My entire marriage might have been a 15-year confidence game. "What about the children?" "They're being investigated as potential accomplices." I hung up. Somewhere in a federal building, my former wife was learning about consequences. Somewhere in Phoenix, my children were learning that their betrayal might follow them forever. Months later, I was at a groundbreaking ceremony for a new tower. As the event ended, I noticed a familiar figure at the edge of the construction site. It was Rachel, now taller than I remembered. She watched me from behind a safety barrier. I felt no impulse to approach her, no surge of paternal affection. She was simply a young woman who resembled someone I once loved. She raised a hand in a tentative wave. I nodded once, then turned and walked to my car without looking back. That night, Martin called. Rachel was there. She traveled downtown by herself just to see you from a distance. "Doesn't that affect you at all?" She was my daughter, I corrected. Now she's someone who chose to betray me. The fact that she regrets that choice doesn't change the equation. 2 years after it all fell apart, I was at the pinnacle of Chicago business. My empire was vast, my power absolute. I was also the loneliest man in Illinois. Then, one morning, Martin called before dawn. Ashley is dead. A suicide in her prison cell. She had left a note, addressed to me. That afternoon, Martin brought it to my office. I opened it. It was 3 pages long. In it, she confessed everything. She had targeted me deliberately from the beginning. It was all a plan to access my wealth. But she wrote something I didn't expect. But you were wrong about one crucial thing. I did love you. Not at first. But somewhere in our 2nd year of marriage, something changed. I fell in love with the man I was deceiving. She explained her final, fatal mistake. I convinced Brandon and Rachel that you were under immense stress, and that Andre was a specialist who could help protect the company. I told them gathering data for him was the only way to save your business and our family from a collapse you were hiding from us. They thought their secrecy was a mission to help you, never understanding I had turned them into weapons against you. I read the letter twice. Does that change anything? Martin asked. No, I said, my voice flat. They still chose to deceive me. Their intentions don't erase their choices. I picked up Ashley's letter and fed it into the document shredder. Later that year, my head of security called late at night. Sir, we have a situation at the front gate. I walked to my security monitor. A young woman was standing in the rain. It was Rachel again. Just standing there. Not trying to get in. She's been there for 20 minutes, the officer said. I watched my daughter, the little girl I had once pushed on swings, standing alone in the dark. She's not a security threat, I said quietly. Let her stand there as long as she wants. But do not let her on the property. At midnight, she finally gave up and walked away. In the end, I had everything I thought I wanted. Wealth beyond measure, power without limit, and complete protection from the possibility of betrayal. I stood alone in my mansion, surrounded by $50 million in assets and 0 people who cared if I lived or died. I had won, and winning felt like nothing at all. So here's what I want to know. If you discovered your own family had been turned against you by someone you trusted, would you have been able to forgive them? Or would you have done exactly what I did, burned it all down to make sure no one could ever hurt you again? Let me know in the comments.